It's interesting because when I'm editing a manuscript, to me, like, I don't see that much of a difference whether the author is pursuing traditional publishing or they're going to self-publish or go with the small press, because the book is still what matters. And so by keeping that in mind, I approach every book equally. And if you're pursuing traditional publishing, that's not superior to self-publishing. It's just a different path. And so the book is the book, and I'm going to edit it the same way I would no matter what path. What I will say though is if I know for 100% certain that the author is pursuing traditional publishing and they want to get an agent, there are some things that you definitely need to be aware of. You can get away with more things if you're self-publishing or going with a small press, because especially with small presses now, they're more willing to take on books of certain genres or topics and things that traditional publishers like Big Five or Midsize might be a little more hesitant to take on. And there might be some elements in the books that could make agents hesitant to take books on. And so if I'm editing a book and I come across something like that and I know the author wants to sign with an agent, I will just let them know. I'm not telling them you have to change this because that's not my decision to make, that's theirs. But I will make a note saying, hey, like, this might be a little bit of a hard sell because of this reason. This is just something to be aware of. It doesn't mean it won't sell to an agent. I'm just saying that this might be an obstacle you might have to overcome. Or if there's an element in the story that might be a little problematic, and I point that out, I say maybe if you cut this, it will give you a better shot with an agent. But if this element of the story is really important to you, you do not need to cut it at all. And so it's always the author's choice, but I think it's important to make them aware of things because, especially when I started querying the first time, there were things that I wish I would have known before, and it wasn't until I started to work with a lot of authors and became friends with agents and stuff where I really understood, and just from my own experiences querying as well. And so having that knowledge now, I think it's really great, and it's really nice to be able to pass that along to someone so they know ahead of time instead of going through the whole situation and realizing, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And so any way I can help authors avoid those kind of situations, I try to, but at the end of the day, it's their book and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that, and I'm glad you mentioned that there is no superior path, they're all equal, because obviously here the indie side is mostly about indie authors who have either self-published or gone with a small press, but there's nothing wrong with traditional publishing as well. I think the reason I see most indies who've made that decision, the reason it's come up a lot on these episodes, is exactly what you said. It's people thinking that, oh, my story isn't that marketable, it's not what agents or publishers are looking for, it's either a niche genre or it's a genre mashup, or they want to do something that just isn't an easy sell to traditional publishers, so they go with the indie route, which is a great choice as well if that's a story you want to tell. But like you said, it's the story that comes first, and that's the author's personal decision of how they tell that and how they choose to then sell the story.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's one of the things too that I would suggest for authors to think about the path you want to pursue, and whatever feels right for you is the path to go. There is a lot of stuff online sometimes with people kind of arguing over superior paths, which to me, like, that's not cool because every path is valid. There are different reasons authors want to get published. If your goal is to be on the New York Times bestseller list and you want to do a book tour and you want to be with HarperCollins, then you need an agent. But if your goal is, I just want to hold a book in my hands and I want to be able to see my words in print, and I don't really care if I sell a million copies, I don't want to be famous, I just want to live the life as an author, then you don't necessarily need to pursue traditional publishing. And so I think doing some reflecting on your own personal goals and what's best for you and your story is so important. And don't listen to all the noise and what people are saying, because you have to do what's right for you.
Exactly, and that was kind of one of the next things I wanted to discuss is the pros and cons of different routes, but as you see them when people come to you for editing, so the pros and cons of trad and indie for an editor to work with.
I don't necessarily necessarily think there's like a pro or con situation with the editing specifically because I'm just focusing on their book. And so whatever route they want to take, whatever publisher they want to send their book to or agent, or if they want to self-publish it, that's their choice. And so I don't necessarily see pros and cons with the editing other than it's not necessarily a con, but what I said before about having elements and things in your book that might be hard sells for agent, point those out, which could be, I guess you can see it as a con for traditional if you have to make some choices that you don't necessarily want to make, but you know will make it more marketable. But in terms of just the editing itself, I don't really see much of a difference because I'm focusing on the story.
Yeah, that's always a relief to hear because the story should come first, and often you see traditional publishing and indie routes pitted against each other as well. This one has all the success, or if you do it this way, well, that's wrong. But I don't think it comes down to that so long as you get to tell your story and, like you said, pursue whatever goal you have with that story.
Oh, the one thing I wanted to add real quick is readers aren't even like necessarily aware of like even who the publisher is. If they find a good book, they're going to read it. And I think I did see something, I think it was last year, somebody did some kind of survey where they asked author or readers, do they like even know who published the book when they go to read it? And a huge percent said no. So if an author stumbles upon a book that connects with them, they're not going to care if it's published by a small press or Simon & Schuster. They're going to buy it anyways. And so that's why I think this discourse surrounding independent publishing and traditional publishing is wild to me because the readers don't care. The only real, like, one of the main benefits with traditional publishing, obviously, is the greater reach and the distribution. And it's a little more likely that a reader will come across a book that was traditionally published versus self-published or with a small press. However, if you do the marketing and you build your connections and you get the book out there, then it will find the readers either way. And so it really comes down to the story and focusing on the story. That's what matters.